not calls. At scale, that was a massive difference in our bottom line. We built a foundry partnership with several of our production technology partners, so people like Ericsson, Intel, Cisco, Microsoft, and Docs. Cisco actually went on to acquire Intel for $475 million. So our role actually enabled these people to get some visibility, some trial in an actual network setting, and I think that's a good example of enabling technology.
Did you guys have a stake in that company at all? Was that purely an adoption, or was it an adoption contest?
He said I can't discuss commercials. I like
Ursula?
No.
I just wanted to add that we cannot generalize working with an operator, and even within a company. And we're all big companies, we're all made up of different business units. And while at one moment, there may be great working relationship with one business unit, in another business unit there may be a change of management, and that business unit is preoccupied with itself and has less resources or doesn't have focus yet where it wants to go. So it's a bad moment to work with a company, with a telco. So I think we need to differentiate at a bigger level than all working with a telco or even with a company, really at the stage where the business unit is and the openness and readiness to work with the outside, with the startups. But if the business unit is ready, then I think it's a fantastic. If there's alignment and focus, then it's a win-win and you can be very rapid moving forward.
Anyone else? Or we have a question on the side. If anyone wants to tackle Rob's, or we can go over there. All right. Joshua.
Hi, so I'm Joshua, 2600 Hertz. So I work in a startup, and I can say that my relationship with operators has changed significantly over the years that I've been working here. What I'm curious is what it looks like from the other side. So operators see tons of startups all the time, and you see startups that are maturing and some that don't. So I'm curious, what are sort of the key indicators of startup maturation that make you say, yeah, these guys are ready to work with an operator?
How do you know when a startup looks ready?
But the startup has already some customers like us. Because, for example, for us, when you find a startup, you need to convince your business unit that you can work with them. And the most efficient proof is that they already have some customer inside the US market. And if you are already on the US market, and if you have already some customers in the US market, for us it's very easy. Because AT&T already picks the startup, we can work with them.
And I would say for Telefonica, or for us when we're looking at a company, you almost can't answer the question because it's when the planets align. It's actually at the moment when the need that you have is joined with the offering that the startup has at a point when you're both ready to go and do something with it. So, it's almost like when do you know you're going to meet your husband or your wife or your partner? It's like there is a magic and it's really hard because I was talking to someone the other day and they were saying if it was like a factory production process, there'd be way more successes and way less failures, both in venture capital and in sort of partnerships. And it just isn't, because it is a little bit more like dating. Everything has to be right at the right time for it to work and for that relationship to be a special relationship. So apologies for using a personal thing, but that's kind of how I see it. And there's so much gut feel. There's a lot of analysis and there's a lot of things that you can do to create the right environment. One of the things we work on is trying to understand from our vertical businesses, what are they looking for? Then trying to do a match, so a bit like a match.com. So you're looking for someone who has these characteristics. These are all the people who have these characteristics. Let's meet you up and do some speed dating, and then let's decide whether you want to go on and have another day. That's the way we do it.
And I would like to add on to the dating is also the openness to explore. Some startups have a very fixed idea, only this, and yet we're on an exploratory trajectory. And I think that's a key component is also with the human relationship. Not only what we bring, but can we explore, can we work together, can we co-create, can we pivot together? It's a journey. And like dating, sometimes we stop along the way.
I would just add on that. There's obviously the personal chemistry between the startup and your office here. But then there's also, we always talk about the pitcher and the catcher. You can pitch something back to HQ, but back in the business unit there's somebody. And fundamentally, for better or for worse, this is still a people business.
And you can have some really close-minded business unit guys, right, or gals, who think that they can build it themselves, don't bring value, don't bring distraction. I'm sure you've all suffered through that together, right? I mean, it may not just be the startup per se. It could also be, to Ursula's point, it's the openness of the catcher to actually work with somebody, right?
And that's almost like carrying on my dating analogy. You take it back to me, mum and dad goes, you know what, this isn't going to work. You know, and that's, you know, kind of how it can happen. But you're spot on, and I don't know what the answer is, because you can never quite, there isn't a magic solution for that. But the piece that you have to try and do is only make people jump through that leap of meeting mum and dad when you think that you can make that a successful relationship. Because, and I know we get it wrong often, we sometimes spin too many cycles with startups, and I personally hate when we do that. And I find it really hard when I know we've done it and we're trying everything, but actually they let mum and dad, uncle and aunt and cousins, and fourth cousin removed says, you know what, not doing it.
And then the other thing, what about the difference between core versus non-core? So something about launching an Angry Birds game on your network versus getting a startup in there and touching your core network. And when we make a comment about that?
I think the opportunity, window of opportunity changes. So at this time, your solution might be very good, and if you don't deliver on time, after 3 months, your solution maybe looks bad.
I think what's dangerous is you're talking about getting in touch with core and non-core, and Tracy's read everything about personal relationships and dating. So I want to see your answer to this question.
But I would like to add, if you can integrate with your internal team, especially if you're a technology-driven company, you can integrate it with your solution with the current existing solutions. It's more likely to success.
So Rob, what I found, I'll ask you this question then, is that you've been around doing this for a long time, as I have, and what are the improvements you've noticed, say, in a decade, like 10 years ago, trying to champion something into a carrier? As a local person in Silicon Valley, I actually did it for SK Telecom, and instead of the startup guy taking a bunch of arrows in the front, you just went and took them forward. You had a good idea. Did you find that as well, and we progressed a great deal?
I think that the one thing is, the folks here are more realistic. We've got more battle stars. We know more about what it takes to get a deal done. I don't think we would try to move mountains like we may have tried to do in the past. The other thing is, it's easier. There are, if you had a Java app 10 years ago, you're going to have to do all the handset integration. It's going to take a lot of money and a lot more time. Now you can do something that's more over the top, can get to the market sooner with less money. And that fundamentally makes our jobs here easier.
Because I liken every one of you to a startup VP biz dev. Yep. Because half of what you do is look out there and find the good ideas, and then you find it, you turn around, you're for a little while, you're the VP biz dev for that startup. You like the idea. And if it doesn't work, you've got to quit that job and move on to something else. But you keep putting on that, you have to do that role internally to sell it to the business units. And so it's interesting, great. I think the experience, just like anybody in the startup world is trying to sell in, the experience of knowing how to work with the telco is important. And these people on the panelists, as internal operatives, also have to learn that.
I think that's a really interesting point, because I think there are times when you're almost halfway across into the startup, and it's one of the things we have to be conscious of, because there's times when you can almost end up feeling like, I've got to get this deal, I've got to make this happen. And I know at times my exuberance can flow into that, and at some point you've got to step back and go, right, hang on a minute now, is this right for our business? Because actually that's my role. But I think to Rob's point, I think that's what we have been able to do. It's kind of a real strength that we do almost put ourselves into their shoes and behave like they're extra busy.
So, I don't sell startups internally. I find a solution to a need or desire from the other person. So you're selling a solution, and then you say, by the way, this startup has a solution ready for you. And then it's a different dialogue. You need to make the other person first aware, really, this is the pain point or a desire. desire that you can satisfy, and then it's much easier. Otherwise, when companies start up, you're selling a product, and the other way, you're selling what the other person needs.
One of our carriers today talked about a few methods that they brought innovation in, and one was a pull, which is what you're describing, where head office says, we have a need, but then they also said they do the push, where they find something and they try to take it back. So those are very different types of processes for you, no?
The pull and the push is both needs-based. Sometimes I have to tell the other guys at home that it is a need you have, or a desire you should have, and sometimes they come with it, but it's always, that's the motivating.
So there's at the root of it, there's a need, whether you need to educate about that.
Need or desire.
But you have to educate about the need, and so that push can take a longer time, right?
I think it depends on the technology too. Rob asked about core versus non-core, which I read the name, core network innovation, touching the guts versus services. And we do fewer services these days, and the network's very hard to innovate on, simply because there are people that are paid to make sure no one else touches them. But it stays up 100% of the time. So that's a harder push for us, for sure. But it's something we find ourselves doing more and more and more, because there's simply more opportunity.
It's true that a lot of the innovation taking place right in this era right now is network-based innovation, right? I mean, are we in an era where the network is needing to be revolutionized and changed, or has it always been the case?
Well, I think again, the opportunity for cost savings are pretty real in terms of network infrastructure and the storage spends on that. And you look at the trends on the cloud and software-defined networking, those are real opportunities as well. So it's where we put more time with it.
But you need the network on the both sides. You need the network with a startup, but you need the network inside the company. Because when you want to push some innovation, you need to push to someone who needs it, and you need to get, for example, for us, we are with the jet lag, we are about 9 hours. Every morning we call the people in France. Every 2 months I go to France, and I say, I need to meet all the people to push the startup. So I need to get a nice network inside my company if I want to push some innovation.
So I understand that everybody has brought the one slide with bullet points, correct? So we got to make sure we let you guys talk about your top picks that you're looking for. Let's do slide roulette and have the AV team throw up the slide, and whoever it is, we'll take it for a couple minutes. All right, you win, Stephane.
Okay, very simple. So it's what I said in the introduction. We are a big company. For example, we are from Greece, but we have telecom area, but we are also working for the media area. We are working for TF1. TF1 is the equivalent of ABC in the US market. We are working for real estate with Bouygues Immobilier, Bouygues Construction and Colas. All these companies, about 140,000 people all over the world. But for the carrier, if we make a focus on what we need for the carrier, we need the 4G, because we already launched the 4G network, but we will have the best coverage in France at the beginning of October. So we want to get some innovation in the 4G network. We want also to be more efficient with the customer care. So if you have nice solutions to be more efficient with the customer care, we are looking for it. Digitalization for us is very important. We have also big data. I think for us it will be the next source of revenue. And second screen application, because we have wireline and we have set-top box, we have the bundle with the wireless and the wireline. And for us it's very important to help for the second screen. And as we have started media side with TF1 and with the carrier side with Bouygues Telecom, it's more easy for us to make innovation in this area.
Stephane, you have other Bouygues or Winnovation staff in the room?
Yes, we have Sebastian, but he can stand up.
So we have additional staff. So if you guys want to connect with Bouygues Telecom from France through Winnovation, one of these.
Yes, we stay a little more after, so you can directly come to us.
Excellent. AV team, next question to the left. You're on, Ursula.
Okay, so we cover a lot of the similar topics. Our core big project for this year is the cloud, especially the next generation clouds. On one side, we're already working on the next generation cloud in Switzerland, but the next totally using SDN, SDS, but also the whole aspect of security and new services running on OpenStack. That's a core project. Consumer, the big initiative is the next generation IPTV. We're leaving the media room, and we're still using the media room, but it's going phased out slowly, so we have the next generation. Mobility and transportation cards. Swisscom has the largest fleet management corporate in Switzerland. Small and medium businesses, apps and services. And then the whole health and wellness, we have already around 10 startups in the wellness space, including the Doctor's Call Center. So we're trying to become a key player in ICT health and wellness in Switzerland. And we just founded the Swisscom Ventures Companies for IT, telco, energy, so energy management, demand response.
Great. And the mechanism for people to work with Swisscom, is Daneil also in the audience?
Yeah, he was here.
All right, so we got two up here on stage, right? They want to chat with Rob or Ursula and to talk to opportunities with Swisscom. And then let's go to the next one.
Next one.
So I think what's interesting here is actually, genuinely I think if you just change the logos on any of these slides, we could each talk to each other's slides. So without wanting to repeat, because I think we're all in those same areas. There's a couple of I'll pull out to sort of say these are areas that are really hot for us at the moment. One of the things we're really seeing, and clearly Latin America is a huge growth market for us. It's growing at an amazing rate. We're just seeing the traction in Latin America is really eclipsing anything else we could do in any of our other geographies. And actually some of the things we're doing is, for example, focusing our health initiatives around Latin America, Brazil in particular, and then really trialling it in the country. So for me, it's things where if you have anything that's Latin America focused around payments, banking, especially banking the unbanked. If you have anything around health in Latin America, those are very interesting. For the more developed markets, in big data as a real specific, to give you a very specific kind of focus, the way we're doing our big data initiative is to say we're launching one product called Smart Steps, which is really about how you actually identify the traffic using mobile data. So anything around that is really interesting to us, and advertising. And all of the others are also relevant, but those are the ones that I would pick at.
Great, Tracy. And for interacting with Telefonica on a practical side, how do they connect? What are the mechanisms?
So we have an office here now. We have a number of people based here. I think there was a couple of people here yesterday as well as earlier on today. I think Jamie's left. But through our office in Mountain View is the key.
So connect directly with you.
Direct with me and I'll pass it through.
Excellent. So 7 people on the stage. Only one slide deck remaining. Mark, you ready for a big reveal?
Everything they said plus. Now, so we've expanded our founder initiative in 2 specific places over the past month. First is around end-to-end and connected devices. That actually launched yesterday in Plano, Texas. So this is a facility where you can get 3D printers, have a Faraday cage to test pre-approved radio modules to put in whatever you're going to do. It's specifically designed to help an innovator progress their project. And the second is around digital life and connected car. That launched 3 weeks ago in Atlanta. So many of you may be familiar with our digital life home security automation business that's launched this year and expanded. This is specifically looking to innovate that vertical and bring new products and services to customers. A connected car business is based there as well. We've won quite a bit of business with auto OEMs and have some great relationships and distribution options, always looking for new innovations in this space.
Great. And so I was talking with Rob, but the mechanism to get a hold of you guys through the foundry, knock on the door, how do we do it?
You knock on the door, I'll be over here if you want to catch up later. I know we went with a lot of folks yesterday, so.
So can you literally knock on the door of the foundry?
You can.
It's amazing.
I want to.
You got good coffee?
Good coffee. Thanks.
So is that a question over on the wing? Can't tell. Looks like not. So Rob, go ahead.
I had one question, which I think that there is a perception or misperception. The carriers don't necessarily want to work together. That if I'm working with Telefonica, that's going to hurt my chances of building one. You want to talk about that a little bit?
That's not true. For example, for us, when we are not in competition with some carrier, we can work together to exchange about the network. When we, for example, for about innovation, when we work with other people here, we share about the innovation, about the startup, and if we are not in competition on the same market, we can share some innovation and share some network.
I just think the opposite is true right now. I think there are definitely things where we want to keep them to ourselves and we want to develop those initiatives ourselves, but we have a number of initiatives, and Firefox OS is probably the best example that I could say. The only way Firefox OS will succeed is as a result of all of the carriers actually getting together and going, this is really important to us, because if we don't kind of break the duopoly, then actually we really do have a problem in the future. And that's a fantastic example of actually all of us working together. We co-invested with Singtel into a piece of the technology. We're working with AT&T on some initiatives. We're invested in companies with you guys. Genuinely, I think we don't see each other so much as our own competitors anymore. We have much bigger challenges than each other.
I'll up to challenge that question and say, okay, that's fine, AT&T and Telefonica, but what about if it were Telefonica and Orange? Like, is it the same story there, or does that become more of a touchy space if you both operate in the same region?
Well, I think a great example in the UK is, we created an advertising business jointly with all of the operators, because actually advertisers don't want to get to O2 customers or Vodafone customers or Orange customers. They want to get to the UK population, and so it's a joint venture, and those kind of things are another level of working together. And of course, there'll be times when we would not want to do that.
Get an exclusive carrier or something.
Sure.
And then the other thing I would say is, sitting here, the competition is really back in HQ. It's not here in the Valley. And sometimes one of the best tactics that you can use to employ to get HQ to work with a company is to let them know that there's another carrier that's working with them, right? So if you can actually foment a little competition, that's a good thing to get the attention of headquarters. Do you agree?
How about this thing for you, Rob, as well as everybody else? Does HQ ever think, our guys in Silicon Valley are nuts?
I think all the time, particularly Ursula.
I mean, do they think these guys have gone native? They don't understand us anymore? Do you ever have that problem?
Yeah, and that was, one of my big learnings in the first years here. The first year here, when you're in Silicon Valley, you drink the Silicon Valley Kool-Aid, you believe in the future, you live in the future, and then you come home and it's, hey, you guys need to do this. The first reflection is, how do I know this is going to be true in 2-3 years? And by the way, I need to solve my issues now. And so I really switched in that I try to do more provisioning and outlook for the future here. And then I give chunk sizes of digestible things that managers can digest, because they don't have the time and the resources to think freely. That's our job. So we have the luxury of actually thinking out of the box and thinking freely, but you have to give them pieces that they can digest and execute on rather than overrun them. So that was a key learning years.
And Thomas from Deutsche Telekom was explaining to us how important it is to bring the executives over here. I think is that an important tool in showing, no, I'm not crazy, come on over here and you can take a look at this company yourself.
We call it exposure to the radiation of Silicon Valley, so we do that a lot. And actually, as we've done it more, it's changed over time. And I think one of the other things that we've looked at is we now have 78 people here in Silicon Valley as a result of the acquisition that we made.